go ahead, act like we just met each other, and I'm like, hey, nice to meet you, what do you do? And then just go ahead and lay it on.
Yeah. Okay, ready, set?
Yep.
I'm Dr. Tom Sherman, Hiawatha, Iowa. And to be honest with the Gonstead method, that's all I've ever known. Because Doug Cox, who was one of the doctors here with Dr. Gonstead, who still practices to this day, he was my instructor in college, and then Jerry McAndrews and him practiced together in Davenport, Iowa. And I went to Jerry McAndrews because I had so many student patients that I couldn't take care of them all. You know, I had like 80 some, and you got to have 9 or 10. So I went to him and I said, I've got to get rid of some of these patients. He said, I'll tell you what, if you come and intern for me, you could get rid of 10 patients. So I did that. Well, Doug Cox happened to be his partner. So Doug and I were great friends, and I bought into their clinic in 1974. 75 it would have been. Anyway, I practiced with Doug for a year, and then I decided to leave and go to Hiawatha, Iowa. So I built my own practice. And then in this is maybe getting a little further ahead, but in 1993, when I built my new office, which is gorgeous, sits on 160 acres in the city. It's the only one in the world that has its own airstrip, a half-mile airstrip. And you could taxi your airplane right into my parking lot. But that was Gonstead stuff, because Clarence had his own airstrip, but it was by his house, which is about a half-mile over here. In fact, I went over and looked at it today. You'd never know that there was ever an airstrip there. But anyway, the Gonstead method is so fantastic. I was telling her that, you know, the whole secret is you got to find it, accept it, correct it, and know enough to leave it alone. I mean, don't keep that patient coming. Like I told her, what I always did, I tell all patients, I want to try and get you well as quick as possible. Do it as reasonable as possible. We get you well, tell your friends. Best advertising is to get you well. But I don't want to see you every doggone week or every 2 weeks or month. It's a good idea to have it checked once in a while to make sure everything's okay. But I was explaining to her another thing with the nervous scope, what I always did, and Clarence liked this idea. But where I found inflammation, say on the 6th thoracic, I put a mark on the x-ray where that inflammation was. And a lot of times I'd put down, it's a 15-point break. But the next time the person comes in and maybe their symptom is maybe gone completely or not gone, but if the inflammation has changed, it's no longer on the right side, leave it alone. You fixed it. So always accept it, correct it, and leave it alone was Gonstead's method. And you know, I saw 43,000 patients in 40 years from all over the world. And I started the Gonstead Clinical Studies Society, Dr. Richard Thornton and I out of California. He was from Clinton, Iowa, buddy of mine, but that was in the early 80s. And the whole idea was to do research. In other words, if you found something and you're one of our members, I should say, and things was a little bit different, bring it up to the panel of guys with research, and then all of you try to study that for, say, a 6-month period of time. And then you come back and report what your findings are. Then we would add that to the Gonstead method. Because Dr. Gonstead told me, he said, you know, I'm one of the worst teachers. And I said, really? And he goes, oh, I forget so much stuff that I do. You know, well, if you find something and you fix it on this patient, but, you know, maybe 6 months later, oh, that's right, I fixed that on somebody, you know. And so you always are treating the cause, never ever the symptom. In fact, I had 16 associates through the years, patients that came in as students, really. And anyway, these 16 guys, one of them in particular was a research guy. And Dr. Larry Hurd from, he practiced with me about 2 years, and then he went to a little town in Iowa, and then he finally, I think, moved to Florida. Since passed away. But he was a research guy, and we researched a problem with the sacrum, which was We call it apex sacrum. I don't know whether you guys have ever heard of that. But when you look at a lateral x-ray of a person, if they got a normal lumbar spine, the angle should be 45 degrees. There may be tipped back as much as 60. Well, it don't do any good. And Clarence always taught us, if you have an increased angle of the sacrum, what you want to do is fix the PI ilium. Well, it doesn't make sense to me if we got this tipped, we keep pounding this PI ilium forward. It makes more sense we figure out what caused that. So this was called the apex sacrum. And so a whole bunch of us guys that were in the research thing all came up with the idea that, by golly, there is something to that. That's one of the things that Clarence never taught us. By the way, my son's initials, who took over my practice, is CS. That's what Gonstead, only I told Clarence, and 49 years ago I told him that my son's initials are CS, and oh, he was so happy. But I said it's not Clarence Selmer. It's Sherman is the S. But yeah, I had many years of having a tremendous time taking care of it. And the unique thing about where I practice, 143 miles away, the patient could come up and see Gonstead if I had trouble with him. You know, he'd figure out what was wrong, send him back, I would fix it. So a lot of the guys from all over the country that learned the Gonstead method have all been very successful. All of my associates very successful. In fact, I have, this is kind of cool, my sister had 4 children, 3 are chiropractors. One practiced in Independence, Iowa, and the other one sold his practice in Phoenix, Arizona, and the other one has, I don't remember, 7 or 9 practices that he owned, you know, and has young Gonstead guys taking over the reins of it, you know.
So you mentioned a few times about the collaborative nature of you and Gonstead. Can you share any specific maybe memories or examples that just stick out in your mind when you think about it?
Well, you know, one of the unique things about Dr. Gonstead was the fact that he would actually teach you this and talk about this and then show you how to do it properly. And when we had the pit classes, when there was only about maybe 30, 40 guys there, you get to all have him actually tell you how to do it. And that was pretty unique, I thought. You know, if you had a problem, and I could call him any time, he would, by golly, answer the phone as busy as he was. You know, his waiting room out here was to hold 116 patients. Mine was 35 is all. But I could call him up, and by golly, if I had something wrong with the patient and asked a question, he would come right up with the answer, just sharper than a son of a gun.
What does it take for someone to see over 100 patients a day?
Well, I tell you what you got to do is like I always told people, I don't want to see you any more times than necessary to fix your problem. So you send your friends in. Don't be coming to me. And many times I'd have people stand in front of the door so you couldn't get out. Clarence had the same problem. They'd stand in front of the door because we're going to go to the next room, see? So when he built this, he put rooms that had doors between them so he could get away from them. But, you know, a lot of patients, they love you and they want to tell you jokes. I had a guy, honest to God, this guy drove 52 miles to tell me a joke. And I'd say, Lester, what's wrong with your day? Nothing, Doc. I just had this great joke I had to tell you. You know, and same thing with Clarence. They would tell him jokes and, you know, they want to be a friend of yours, you know, so they want to be with you. And, gosh, I don't know, sometimes I used to feel bad because I'd look out in the waiting room and there'd be 20 or 30 people out there all staring at you, wondering when you're going to get your rear end in gear and get me in here and get fixed so I can leave, you know. But
I have a question about, you said earlier that when you're talking to Gonstead, he said, I don't know how to teach. But what do you know about his learning method? Like, who did he learn from? Who were his mentors? How did he learn what he learned?
I tell you what, I don't think that he ever got any information from anyone in particular or organization or anything. What the deal was is Gonstead had arthritis, I think it was, as a kid. And some chiropractor helped him. That's what turned him on to go to chiropractic college. And then because he had a degree in engineering before, he figured out the spine like an engineer would look at something. In other words, this has got to fit perfect. Like that engineer down in Florida didn't do a good job and the building collapsed. So, being a good engineer that he was, he figured out how that could fix it, how to reposition. And that's the unique thing about the Gonstead work today. Like I can send a patient to somebody in Daytona Beach, my buddy Dr. Aquero, for example. He can adjust the fifth cervical or the fifth lumbar exactly the same as I did, get the same exact results. There's no other than injections or something could be duplicated. But in chiropractic, the Gonstead method, it can be duplicated.
Is there a reason that you clarified right now? You said chiropractic Gonstead. Is there a reason that it wouldn't just be chiropractic?
Well, the two words are, to my knowledge, synonymous. Gonstead is well known throughout the whole United States. In fact, you guys probably never saw us, but CBS News 40 years ago did a special on him, on Gonstead. I don't know if you could still get a copy of it or not, but it was well done. Walter Cronkite was the narrator, It's quite a piece. But anyway, Clarence was the kind of guy that he didn't think of nothing but chiropractic. And I had to laugh the other day. I forget who it was I was talking to that knew Clarence too, and he said, well, the reason he practiced so much to get away from his wife, Elvira. I knew her. She was quite the girl. But so that was the reason that he practiced so long. That
and let's say today somebody Googles, I think I need to see a chiropractor. When they do a Google search, what are the top 10 things they're going to find?
Well, you mean as far as how would you find a chiropractor?
I mean, you see a lot of people, and I'm assuming you see a lot of people walk through your door who might have a different idea of what does it mean to see a chiropractor?
Yeah, that is true. A lot of chiropractors, the old guys were what they call HIO. They'd adjust only the atlas, the top vertebra. If you had a fifth lumbar out of place, you got a top atlas, called hole in one. That was taught by B.J. Palmer clear back in the ancient age, so to speak, Well, I met B.J., of course, as I went to college down there, started in October of 61, and I had visited before that. And the reason I got into chiropractic because my dad had terrible sciatic pain, and he had been to osteopaths and no results. And somebody said, Ray, why don't you go see a chiropractor? This Dr. F.J. Proud in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Well, he didn't know the Gonstead method, I guarantee you that. But he got him well, and I was so impressed not only that he got my dad well, but he also had his own airplane. That makes it, I had to, had to have an airplane too. But anyway, like whenever I send a patient, anybody, they got to know the Gonstead method. And fortunately, just about everybody who graduates today from any one of the chiropractic colleges will know or been exposed to the Gonstead method. So it's the only one that can be duplicated.
And is that because of why is it so duplicatable?
Well, the listings, for example, if I tell you that we got a PIEX ilium on the left, you know exactly how to fix it. Posterior external correction. How to correct it. If you got a PR inferior 7th cervical, push it or pull it. Which one? Everybody knows that is a Gonstead chiropractor. And like my son, he got turned on to this when he was a little kid, And so him and his wife are both chiropractors. In fact, they run my office. The only thing they don't have is they did away with my runway because neither one of them fly. But otherwise, you could fly your airplane into my parking lot and get your back fixed. Pretty cool.
I kind of want to dig a little bit more in before we move on to your personal relationship, because not too many people can say that, right? So what can you let's say gems. What gems can you share with people who, like Dr. Mikey right here, who wish they could have studied with him or maybe been adjusted by him? Like, what kind of gems can you give the next generation of Gonstead practitioners? Well, share with us some gems that only you can.
You know, my motto today is experience is the best teacher, up to the age of senility. Now, that happens to all of us. Fortunately, I'm okay yet, at 80 almost. But, you see, when you get to where all at once, and I could tell you the story, and I don't know whether too many people like it or not, but Clarence was such a friend of mine. He called me when he supposedly was going to do this advanced work. Said, Tom, I want you to come to Florida to be one of my advanced guys. I said, what do you mean advanced? I said, you mean I think at that time I'd been to 76 seminars and all over the world. I mean, I've been in Australia with them, I've been in Hong Kong, I've been in Sydney, Australia, Norway, all over, you know. But anyway, I said, you mean to tell me that now you developed something or saw something new that you're going to start teaching me that's advanced, and you actually used my money all those years for seminars, but you didn't teach me everything? Well, he said, I guess maybe you're one of them that shouldn't come to that. So senility set in. Now here's the reasoning. I know they had bad knees. When you get, and I do too now, but when you get so old that you no longer can fix a PIEX or a sacroapex posterior, whatever, all once he decided to be number one yet, we got to get an advanced. So some of the guys fell in and thought, okay, that's what the advanced is. It was not. And he taught them how to adjust the atlas. The only thing that he maybe did is the idea that do not mix up the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. In other words, if I'm going to fix a parasympathetic nerve, it's going to slow things down in my body. If I fix the sympathetic, it speeds it up. So in other words, you don't fix anything above 5th cervical at the same time you're going to fix the 7th thoracic to the pancreas and the stomach. You know, because your body goes, well, what am I supposed to do? Speed up or slow down? So that's the only thing of all the advanced stuff that I have ever seen and researched in all those years and heard about that could have been different. And I know from a man that was number one, CS, I mean, I loved the guy all my life. I still do. But, you know, I know what happens when people become senile. They still want to be number one. You know, fortunately, my son took over my number one spot. I was just telling her, I come out of the office yesterday after having Chris fix my back, and he's awesome, an adjuster. And I met one of my old patients coming in, and she goes, well, Dr. Sherman, you look really good. You don't look like you've aged at all. And I haven't seen you for probably 15 or 20 years. But she says, he's good, but he ain't near as good as you were. Well, you know how pride. And I swear that had to happen with Clarence. Even though I loved him from the day that I first met him. But still, I know what people will do to try to still be number one. So some of the guys who say, well, I'm part of the research. And they joined our organization that we started in 1982, I think it was, the Gonstead Clinical Study Society. They've joined with us, which made it one organization. I don't know whether they still teach anything different than what Gonstead taught us or not. But I told him, you defrauded me then. And then he said, well, I guess maybe you're one of them that shouldn't go to that, you know.
Do you have why that pose? I always see this pose.
You have a what?
He's always doing this pose, this picture right here.
Oh, yeah.
Is there any significance behind that?
Yeah, that's quite a pose, there's no doubt. I'll tell you something that was hilarious about that old Clarence. You know, when he would teach something, I'm not naming any names because these guys would be mad.
Yeah.
But for example, what we used to do, we had the caracol down here. if you said that Claire said this, and I said, no, he didn't, he said this, we would bet a Heineken beer. In other words, if you lose, you have to buy me one and Gonstead one. I never lost in all those years because I listened well, but some of the guys who were really, supposedly a lot of seminars, never lost a Heineken to.
Heinies, you were right. You told me that. Heinies was his name.
You like Heineken?
I'm sick of French, of course I do.
Anything you guys want to add before?
No, I have a more personal clinical question. You said apex, right? The high sacral base angle, right? Can you explain to me a little bit?
Yeah,
about,
for
how
example,
you approach to that.
I'll tell you how this actually started. I had a patient, I can't think of her name, she's a good-looking woman who worked at Rockwell Collins. She'd come in and she's got a very swayed back. You've seen them when walk around with their butt sticking out. Well, her main thing was a low back problem. And this Larry Hurd was my associate at that time. And I was telling him, on the angle, you should have a normal angle of 45 degrees on the sacrum if you look at it sideways from the canal, from the first to the third, should be a 45-degree angle. Now, if the fifth lumbar is still in its normal position, but the disc is wide open in the front and closed in the back, why do you want to pound on this trying to make her more curved? It makes sense that we try to correct this underneath to close it. And that's where that apex sacrum come up, is the fact that Gonstead, when I said it to him, he goes, oh yeah, I've done that for years. But he never taught us that. It's just the fact that he did so much and had so much in his brain that he didn't always remember to teach you that. But anyway, that has helped a tremendous amount of people. Because you can think of that, you've got a patient, I guarantee you, that's got that problem. Now, analyze it like we always did from behind. If we have from the center sacral tubercle over to the right side and we got 65 and over here we only got 60, it's a PR, apex posterior. So we try and get a hold of it down about the third tubercle, only on the right side, to try to correct the twist. See, it works awesome. I mean, you won't believe the noise when you put one in place. And the relief. That's the thing, how I kind of discovered that too. I remember this lady, I can't think of her name right now, but I remember she was a school teacher in Cedar Rapids. She had this apex posterior I knew nothing about. But I couldn't get her low back fixed. Send her up here to Gonstead, and she says to me when she come back, you know what, you're not getting your hand in the right spot. You got to do it like Gonstead. So she said, this is where he pushed, right down here. Well, see, he was pushing on the apex, but he never told anybody. But she told me, if you don't, I've got to go 143 miles to get it fixed. So I started doing that. And when I first did it, she goes, oh my, that is exactly the way Clarence does it. So I looked at, other patients that had the same problem. Just because he was so full of information, he didn't teach us that. But the guys who know of it today, it's really a saver on a lot of people.
Do you correct that? You almost like a spondylar way, or you are contacting way down there and still you do arc up or arc down?
Too bad we don't have a spine in here. I could show you.
What kind of clinic is it?
But if you take the sacrum and you're looking at it like this, okay?
I know what you're saying.
And we're going to fix it on the right side. First tubercle, second, third. Just about where it starts to come down the fourth and the coccyx. Where you're going to get right down here. Mm-hmm. And the line of correction has got to be down and under like. Mm-hmm. Whereas fifth lumbar, we'd push it back up on top. Mm-hmm. But if we already got a normal angle here, and we got this this sacrum back here dropped way down like this, it just don't make sense that we pound this. Or, in the same way, Gonstead taught us, fix the PIEX. But does that make sense to you? I mean, if we got a heck of a sacrum angle, you can try it a few times. I'm a good example. So I had a PIEX left ilium with a PRSM fifth lumbar. And what is so cool is when I talk about that, if you know the Gonstead method, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And that's pretty unique that we can communicate with each other and about patients, you know. If I take care of Maud and I did a good job on her and I tell you that you should fix it this way and you get the same results, that's awesome. You know, and so that's the thing about the Gonstead. It's so unique that you can redo exactly.
Something so proven, something so measured, you know, standing the test of time thus far. How do you see it as a practitioner for 40 plus years? How do you see it, let's say, in the next 40 years? Where can it go?
Well, you know, I, as the head of the Gonstead Clinical Studies Society, started. What I always wanted to do is I want to have seminars all over the country put on by us old guys that would take time to do it. And if you're a new doctor and you've never been to a Gonstead seminar, you get it free. The whole idea is impress on you how you could be so much better and have a better practice, just between you and I. Starting out with nothing, ending up with millions, it's only because I did a good job on a lot of people and was wise to invest, you know. But and if we could teach all these young guys and you get it free, you go, holy cow, that's pretty nice, you know. They want to teach me and just teach them the basics to try and encourage them to come on back to another seminar. You know, and so if you had them in every state, all over the United States, Hawaii. In fact, when I started this Gonstead Clinical Studies, guess what? We had 12 seminars in Hawaii. And I never will forget, one year, this was hilarious. There was about 170 chiropractors there, really a big bunch. And one young guy from Hawaii, I said, now, if you guys want to go on a fantastic cruise, my wife has lined it up to where you can go on this all-day big catamaran cruise for $35. They wanted 50, she drew them down to 35. Not thinking about saying anything about Jews. If you imagine one Jewish guy in the crowd come up and chewed me out first, saying I said, I'm sorry for using that, but in the Midwest, we always try to Jew people down, you know. But it's the first time I ever had got a shoot out for that anyway.
So when you say, like, you think newer doctors should be like how you mentioned free clinic by us, like you said, old guys. Today, right? Everything, especially after last year, moved to digital, moved to virtual, right? So is there a threat and or is there a way to, let's say, marry that kind of, I know the importance of hands-on, right? That's the whole thing with chiropractic, it's hands-on especially. But is there a way to give that kind of...
Get it into a machine or something, you mean?
I mean, what do you think?
You know, in Florida, my good friend, his wife went to a chiropractor who used some kind of a machine on her. She got a little teeny bit of results. But when she went to my son in past years for the same condition, two or three office visits fixed it, you know. And here she goes like 12 times, spends way more money, but they got this machine that works so awesome and everything. Nothing, as far as I'm concerned, can duplicate the hand. I mean, you know, the thrust. In fact, I taught an old guy, this is something I was telling her. This guy's been to many seminars up here, but he forgot the one principle. Find it, accept it, correct it, and leave it alone. She went to him 3 or 4 times, got 90% of her sciatic pain gone. But he kept her coming and kept adjusting. July 7th, she had surgery on her back because all symptoms came back. But he had it fixed. He didn't know enough to leave it alone. So I called him up and I said, what do you think, John? Well, he said, I should have listened to you. Accept it, correct it, leave it alone when you get it fixed. Because he had her fixed, see? Anyway, she's coming to my cottage, her and her husband, in northern Minnesota, September sometime. She was a classmate of mine my wife in high school up there. So she just went through surgery, and she is better where they stick this thing in the sacroiliac joint, and I don't know what the heck they do. I've seen it on TV, you know. But he had it fixed. He should have known. And he's a good Gonstead guy. I mean, you know, but he's 84 years old still practicing in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. Not beach, Fort Myers, Florida. But anyway, it's just the thing. Find it, accept it, correct it, and leave it alone. And no, I don't think there's a machine that can fix it. You know, as good as what you can do with your hands.
And you can't send it anywhere. Like there's no, like, you know, virtual doctor meeting, how that blew up last year with all this kind of online Zoom and all that. There's no replacement, in your opinion, to physical.
No, but if I taught you how to fix the darn thing correct, and I could call you up and you're in, say you're in Hong Kong, and I tell you that this guy's got an ASRP atlas, you know how to fix it. You know, sitting up in the chair properly, if you have been taught properly. And you have to attend a few seminars to really get that. That's why if we had a free seminar thing for young guys, first time they come, I'm sure most of them would want to pay the second time. Even though to us old guys, money don't mean, you know, my son, every time he sells some big thing or something, I ask you how many million you got for it. He goes, what do you need new now? You know, I said, well, I'll take a new jet. No, I better not do that.
Anything you guys else wanted to add? Did you have something?
I'm just, I'm kind of fascinated with him, the fact that like you knew like Gonstead's life on like a day-to-day type basis. Was there anything like when Gonstead wasn't practicing, what was he doing?
Well, I'll tell you what, the guy was here so many hours.
I know, that's why it's hard for me to even imagine, but I'm curious.
You know, he had his own airplane too. And he used to fly around the country doing seminars. I don't know whether he really was the pilot himself. The guy who ran the motel, Ned McGinley, was a good friend of mine, and I don't know whether he was a pilot or not. But Ned, in fact, came down and hunted pheasants with me. He'd bring him back and give Clarence one. I don't know whether they ever ate him or not. But actually, the guy worked all the time, flying around doing a seminar or two, you know, be gone on a weekend. But it's just, I don't know what else the guy could have done other than bought some land and stuff like that. I think he owns several farms around here. And like I was telling her, what you do to become a wealthy chiropractor, buy land next to a big city that's developing. Like I own 160 acres right in the city. I mean, it's unreal what people will pay for it today. I mean, you know, you're going to make a lot of money, but you want to make it more, you know. It's kind of fun. I own a company in Hong Kong, China. Can you imagine that? I don't advertise that too much.
How was Gonstead's diet?
Huh?
How was Gonstead's diet?
You know, the guy never really. I took him down to lunch down at the Caracol many times. You know, we'd go down and have to have a Heineken on somebody and have lunch, but it was not a good diet, I don't think. You know, I have a lot better diet. Steaks, number one.
That's good.
And I have a place in Florida, so shrimp and fish and. But that's all I do anymore is hunt, fish, and fly. That's it. And a lot of times my wife is hunting for me. She goes, "You go fishing 3 times a day? My boat sits right out there. Why not, you know?" She goes shopping. But anyway.
All right. I will just leave it to you for your, let's say, final thoughts on just everything we've experienced, where we are here in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, at the Gonstead Clinic, where he used to practice. You with your personal relationship to him, you just leave us with your final words.
You know, to show you, you know, that you can't always be perfect, okay? I came up here one time to a seminar, and Clarence was showing other students how to fix my neck, fix my 6th cervical, adjusted it. However, I never made it out of town and breaking around you, pain down my arm. You know, things sometimes don't go quite right. So you got to be able to accept it, you know, and fix it. So I came right back here. He said, oh, I must have moved that a little too far. Fixed it the other way, it's gone. You know, but it just goes to show you that you got to have some seminars, enough seminars to where you have confidence in your ability. And it's always good for you to try and adjust you, for example. You can see how it feels, you know. I may not be able to do it exactly the same as Gonstead, and my fingers aren't as bad as his. Did you ever see his fingers? Oh, at the end they're crooked like this, you know, and they're long. I mean, Norwegian, like he's got his hands together and that thing like that. And you can see up here, see those fingers? I mean, he just so damn many people, his fingers were goofy. I always said that you got an advantage because they're bent so you can fix things better, you know. That's pretty good, darn neat. But anyway, I got to fly to northern Minnesota. I'm on the board of directors of the Lake Association, and I'm the head of the sport fishing program. So I got to report to 1,000 people for breakfast tomorrow morning how fishing's been.
Well, don't let us keep you. Thank you so much for being
Yep.
so.